has been indicted more times than elected and is currently in trial for 91 felony charges. And that's after being ordered to pay $83 million after a jury of his peers decided he was a rapist. That's the leader of the Republican Party.
We are in the much-awaited trial week, and it won't be long before the verdict is rendered and the fate of the former President Donald J. Trump is established.
Your response, Senator?
I hesitate to say this because I really don't like to disparage public officials, but Donald Trump is a pathological liar.
While we wait for that, the frequency with which the former president misleads the American people to further his interest in any manner is becoming a topic of increasing interest.
Fantastic. So we're here. This is a hoax. This is a judge who's conflicted. Badly conflicted. I've never seen a judge so conflicted. And giving us virtually no rulings. I hear I'm not even allowed to say advice of counsel. This is a new one to me.
His constant criticism of President Joe Biden and all court personnel is just one of the ways that people have easily characterized him as a false accuser who uses deceptive tactics to cover up his crimes and avoid prosecution.
If you're on his side of it. But nothing he's done has been good for elections. Everything he's done has been very bad for our country.
In the latest Harris poll conducted for The Guardian, 56% of adults expressed the belief that we are in a recession. That includes 67% of Republicans, 49% of Democrats, and 53% of independents. And although inflation has fallen sharply over the past year, 72% of adults still think that is increasing.
It appears that his assertions about the peculiar condition of the U.S. economy under Joe Biden are unfounded, as previous reports have revealed data from Steve Ratner's graphics discrediting the phony surveys and demonstrating that the U.S. economy is doing better under Joe Biden's administration than it was under Trump's best attempt prior to COVID-19.
I would like to promise and pledge to all of my voters and supporters and to all of the people of the United States that I will totally accept the results of this great and historic presidential election if I win.
We could discuss hypothetical situations, such as his purported allegation that President Joe Biden lost the 2020 elections despite the lack of supporting evidence. Considering his apparent defeat, he proved reluctant to accept the result.
Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
On top of that, he attempted to overturn the elections through dishonest means, but found himself utterly unsuccessful thanks to his vice president, Mike Pence, whom he has made sure to verbally attack whenever possible.
I shouldn't joke because you know what? Running against the worst candidate in the history of presidential politics puts pressure on me. Could you imagine if I lose my whole life? What am I going to do? I'm going to say, I lost to the worst candidate in the history of politics. I'm not going to feel so good. Maybe I'll have to leave the country. I don't know.
The fact that he's back with his signature flair and scandals only serves to highlight his additional elements of dishonesty. He had promised to withdraw from American politics if he lost the 2020 election.
They only want our names in this thing because it sensationalizes the case. We've done absolutely nothing wrong. We have a better company than they could have ever imagined.
Despite the mounting number of felonies being brought against him and his unwavering denial of them all, he was penalized in a business fraud case last year alongside his son Eric Trump after being found guilty. But he doesn't seem to want to be transparent about the circumstances.
The FBI authorized the use of deadly force during the Mar-a-Lago raid. This according to documents filed by Trump's legal team.
A few days ago, Trump went too far by accusing Joe Biden of attempting murder on August 8, 2022, when the FBI raided his Florida home and retrieved federal classified documents that he had kept even though he had left the White House 2 years earlier. putting the onus on the president for ordering them to use lethal force when it's already well known to be a significant aspect of their conduct, especially considering that their raid occurred after he had left for his home in New Jersey, was an unacceptable error and, at this point, a dangerous lie that could cause needless concerns for the democracy of the United States.
Lies. Repeated, aggressive, intentional, dangerous lies. CNN's Marshall Cohen, who reads through court documents involving every suspect in the Capitol attack, pointed out 12 lies that the former president told in his Fox News interview on Sunday, all, of course, enabled by the host. Here's lie number 1.
Since there have been numerous allegations of the former president's dishonesty, which we cannot address all, the focus has only been on lies pertaining to current events.
This is all about Biden. Can't campaign, so he's trying to injure his opponent. They're trying to hurt the opponent because they can't win it fair and square.
If he's proven guilty in this hush money payment case, it might as well be the cherry on top, ending his political career for good.
They have no case, and it's been absolutely proven now. They have no case whatsoever. This is Alvin Bragg doing it for political reasons for Biden. This is a Biden trial. He's a crooked president.
His persistent attempts to justify himself and his denials of all allegations made by Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen under oath would be the last straw for the American people, who would undoubtedly never allow him a public appeal again if he's found guilty.
Outside looks like it's supposed to be Fort Knox. There are more police than I've ever seen anywhere because they don't want to have anybody come down. There's not a civilian within 3 blocks of the courthouse.
His remarks regarding the unusually high level of security and lack of freedom from his post-trial interview about a week ago are still remembered, and some people have decided to stop letting him carry on his lies.
Okay, for fact's sake, we were there. You can see plenty of people milling about. That is directly across the street from the courthouse. People are sitting there eating their lunch. There are barricades up. The press is there, reporting the news. There are orderly lines with people waiting to go into the courthouse. And then there's a wide open park right there.
In this clip, we can see MSNBC host Stephanie Ruhle lashing out at the former president with clear evidence that refutes the disinformation he continues to relay on camera.
But it's a big park, and the idea that, people cannot come out and protest for him is nonsense. And part of the reason Trump is saying that, kind of according to our reporting, people inside his orbit, is because Trump is personally offended that his supporters have not come to New York to protest him, and as a result, this is why he is protected.
Civilians and the press can be seen outside the courthouse. However, the real issue has to do with Donald Trump's supporters being to blame because they're not showing up to protest.
And then there's a wide open park right there where protesters, anti-protesters, anyone in the world can show up and speak their piece. And there was a handful of people there.
According to camera sightings, only a handful of his supporters showed up, rarely exceeding double digits.
We're here of our own volition because there are things we can say that President Trump is unjustly not allowed to say.
This gag order is to ensure that he cannot defend himself fairly. So we're here to have his back.
This is a sham trial.
This is a scam. It is a sham. It is a show.
Nonetheless, he was fortunate enough to witness a remarkable performance by his Republican congressman a few days prior in one of the most dramatic events involving the court walls in Manhattan, New York, along with Trump's iconic Red Tie Brigade.
The Department of Justice authorized the use of deadly force when FBI agents executed a raid at President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence.
It's actually plausible that the former president is fabricating these statements to hide the fact that, despite seeming to be the American choice just a few months prior, recent events don't support that theory. His most recent Thursday South Bronx rally, which had one of the lowest turnouts ever and even drew an anti-Trump rally to himself, is further evidence of that. His fellow Republicans, as usual, had to inflate the attendance figures to prop up his ego and preserve his public appeal. from one of the most juvenile Republican factions since the party's founding, this is hardly a surprising character.
Mr. President, do you plan to testify?
Yeah, I would testify, absolutely. It's a scam. It's a scam. That's not a trial. That's not a trial. That's a scam.
Speaking about how long before the court cases started, he had promised to testify and had failed to do so.
And Donald Trump deciding not to take the stand. That had been the major question looming over this weeks-long trial, because Donald Trump had said publicly that he would, though legal analysts doubted throughout that he would actually take the risk, given he would be opening himself up to damaging questions by prosecutors. And ultimately, it is his Fifth Amendment right not to be compelled to be a witness against himself.
The former president and his delegate frequently assert that he wants to testify, but his defense team does not support that desire. Is that really the case, though?
The president never took the stand. He was flanked by his son, Donald Trump Jr., and members of the GOP as he entered the courtroom this morning.
As everyone knows, the former president only acts on his own convictions and never follows orders. It's impossible to count the number of times he's broken gag orders since the court trials began. So what's changed to make him such an obedient fellow in this situation?
Donald Trump wins. What's next for America?
Those words are largely associated with Nazi Germany and Adolf Hitler's Third Reich, another name for his Nazi regime.
His fraudulent nature contributes to the uncertainty surrounding his assertions about his intention to steer clear of dictatorship. This is particularly true in light of his notoriously deleted Truth Social tweet about creating a unified Reich, which evocatively used a Nazi term and was deeply disturbing.
Fourth Reich, if you will. The good news is Trump wants to bring the country together. The bad news is that country is Germany in 1933. His campaign said it wasn't Trump who reposted the video. It was one of the junior Nazis who worked for him.
Kimmel's satirical slander never fails as usual, and no matter how lighthearted he portrays it, there's a lot of nuance to a situation like this that could decide American lives following the November presidential elections.
What else does this man have to do for people to see what he is? Just grows the mustache? What if he grew the mustache? What if he grew a little blonde Hitler mustache?
It's quite unsettling that even if he were to declare his desire for dictatorship openly, his supporters wouldn't even slightly shudder.
First of all, I won in 2020 by a lot, okay? Let's get that straight. I won in 2020.
You know that
and if you look at all of the tapes, if you look at everything that you want to look at, you take a look at Truth to Vote, where they have people stuffing the ballot boxes on tapes, or
Mr. President,
let's go to recent. Well, wait a minute. Let's go to recent.
A closer examination of this post-election video from 2020 reveals the heightened sense of childhood that Mr. Trump still harbors, as well as his inability to accept defeat, which precipitated his infamous decision to skip President Biden's inauguration.
Do you support any restrictions on a person's right to contraception?
Well, we're looking at that, and I'm going to have a policy on that very shortly, and I think it's something that you'll find interesting.
With growing rumors of developing laws criminalizing abortions being linked to his 4-year tenure in the White House, combined with his honest admissions of going against it in his second term, he does not present a good image in American society that values its fundamental right. While much of what has happened in this context is still up in the air and has not been proven, we can only wait to see how things play out. As George Stephanopoulos pointed out, though, the picture is as clear as ever, and it will be interesting to see how Americans use it in November when the election rolls around.
That shouldn't happen. And it also came out that the protesters, many of the protesters, are backed by Biden's donors. Okay, are you listening, Israel? I hope you're listening, Israel. Hope you're getting smart.
It seems like the sniping battle between the two major presidential contenders will go on forever, especially with Donald Trump's camp in the picture. All we can do is hold our noses and enjoy the show, all the while remembering how important it is to vote for the right candidate. What are your thoughts on all of this? As always, we expect your responses in the comment section below. We're not going anywhere, and we'll definitely be back because we don't want you to miss any of the drama, and we sure don't want to miss it either. Until next time.